His oldest son called at midnight. He was an investigator. "Dad, listen to me carefully. Turn off the lights. Go to the workshop, lock yourself in, and don't say a word to Ryan." "Got it?" I whispered. "Ethan, what's going on? You nearly stopped my heart," he snapped. "Just do what I said." Now, I obeyed. And then, through a crack in the floor, I heard something that froze the blood in my veins. Hello, my dear friends. Before we begin, write in the comments what your favorite smell of home is. Fresh bread, pies cooling on the counter, maybe your grandmother's jam simmering on the stove. Get comfortable. Today's story is the kind that gives you goosebumps. Leonard Miller bought the old two-story stone house near Old Town, Alexandria, 30 years earlier. Back when that block still hadn't become fashionable, and the neighbors thought he had lost his mind. His wife, Nora, walked through every room, touched the hand-painted tile around the fireplaces, looked up and said, "Leo, look at these ceilings. The only thing missing here is a full-grown giraffe." "A giraffe won't fit into the family budget," he answered. "But the clocks will chime so loudly the neighbors will start setting their watches by us." And that was exactly how it turned out. On the second floor, Leonard built his workshop, and over 42 years, hundreds of mechanisms passed through his hands there. Now 17 antique clocks, each in a different stage of resurrection, filled the house with what Nora used to call breathing. Every mechanism had its own note, its own rhythm, its own stubborn pulse. They raised 2 children in that house. Ethan moved to Washington, D.C., and became an investigator in major crimes. Emily got married and moved out on her own. Leonard often remembered 8-year-old Emily sitting on a tall stool in the workshop while he brought a bronze mantel clock back to life, a thing someone had dragged to a school fundraiser, and most people would have thrown away without a second thought. His daughter handed him tools with such serious concentration that one day he couldn't help himself. "Emily, you're staring at that like it stole your candy." "Dad, look at it. It's all crooked. It's broken." "It isn't broken, sweetheart. It's just tired." Imagine spinning for 40 years without a day off. When the mechanism finally came alive and its first chime spread through the room, Emily clapped her hands. "Dad, why do you bother with all this old junk? You can buy new clocks at the store, pretty ones." He sat her on his knees. "You see, Em, everything deserves a second chance, even little pieces of metal. If someone stubborn enough takes care of them, they can come back to life. You're the best dad in the world." He believed those words for the rest of his life. About 2 years before the main events, Emily brought home Ryan Whitaker, who introduced himself as a financial consultant. They celebrated the wedding that summer at a country restaurant outside the city. Ryan hugged his new father-in-law and shook his hand firmly. "Leonard, you have my word. Emily will be safe with me, like behind a stone wall." "Do I have a choice?" Leonard said with a grin. "I can't exactly throw you out when the bride's already in her dress and the reception has been paid for." Nora nudged him with her elbow, but he noticed she didn't laugh. At the table, Ryan kept steering every conversation toward money. The collection, the house, the savings. Casually, he mentioned the rising cost of medical care. "Leonard, have you thought about the future? Retirement accounts are one thing, but a house like yours, in a location like this, is practically gold." "I think about the future regularly, Ryan, usually in front of an open refrigerator. So far, the refrigerator makes a stronger argument than any investment fund." Ryan laughed a little louder than the joke deserved, then shifted to insurance. Leonard wrote it off as the practicality of a young husband. A year earlier, Nora died. From her first complaint of fatigue to the funeral, only 6 weeks passed. In hospice, the day before the end, she slipped the watch off her wrist, the one Leonard had made by hand for their 10th anniversary from pieces of 3 old mechanisms, and fastened it around his wrist. Her hand was weightless, but her grip was surprisingly strong. "Nora," he began. She shook her head. Not a word. He didn't understand then. Later he realized it was her way of saying, "Time is yours now. Guard it." Nora had sensed something in Emily. Maybe not the whole scale of it, but enough to worry. The house went silent. Leonard stopped taking orders. Ethan called from Washington every few days, but his cases kept him there. "Dad, how are you doing? Are you at least eating lunch?" "I'm eating, Ethan. Right on schedule. I've mastered soup." "What kind of soup?" "Water and bright memories. Your mother would have thrown me out of the kitchen for cooking like this." 6 months after the funeral, Emily came into the kitchen, sat across from him, and took his hand. "Dad, you can't rattle around alone in a house this big. Our lease is almost up anyway. Let us move in. We'll get the garden back in shape. We'll pay those stupid bills ourselves. You won't have to worry about household stuff anymore." I don't think I'm falling apart yet." "Dad, you've been wearing that shirt for a week, and there's nothing in the refrigerator except an Echo and expired milk. You're not 16 anymore. Take care of yourself." Ryan nodded with delicate concern and added rehearsed phrases about how Leonard had earned some peace. A week later, they moved in. At first, it felt like a rescue. Voices returned to the house. Movement returned. The smell of cooking returned. Then the pills began. Every evening, Emily brought him a small white pill. "Dad, here, take your tablet. The doctor prescribed it, so your head will feel clearer after all these nerves." "I don't remember any doctors coming to see me." "Well, see?" Emily smiled softly and stroked his hand. "That means you definitely need it. It's just vitamins. Don't be afraid." Leonard didn't argue. His daughter was so gentle, so confident, that doubting her felt like betrayal. After 2 weeks, his thoughts began to move more slowly. He would walk into the workshop and stand at the workbench, unable to remember why he had come. He would pick up a mechanism and fail to understand which part led where. Clocks he had worked on for years suddenly seemed foreign. The man who could tell the sound of a correct beat from a false one with his eyes closed was losing the thing without which he could not be himself. The worst part was how willing he became to believe them. "Dad, you forgot you just ate again. Can you imagine what you'd do without us?" One night he woke because someone was standing in the corner of the bedroom. Nora. She wore the dress they had buried her in. She looked at him, didn't move, didn't speak. The fabric stirred, though the windows were closed. Leonard squeezed his eyes shut, opened them again. She was still there. Emily appeared in the doorway almost instantly. "Dad, what's wrong? You were screaming through the whole house. You scared us." He couldn't make himself say, "Mom, I thought I saw something." "Of course you thought you saw something. The brain plays nasty tricks at night. Horror movies would be jealous. Lie down. You just need a good night's sleep." She tucked him in, hugged him, stroked his hair, and he, a 67-year-old clockmaker, lay there unable to tell waking life from delirium. Terror mixed with shame. Emily's tenderness that night was the cruelest thing they did to him, because it imitated love. Meanwhile, Ryan rearranged the house in his own way. The first camera appeared at the front door. "Leonard, we should install security. Times are rough. Thieves everywhere." "Ryan, the last crime in this neighborhood was in 1993, when someone stole the mailman's bike. And even then, they brought it back with an apology and a new chain." Ryan laughed and put a second camera in the living room, in case Leonard falls. A third went in the hallway in case he wanders at night. A fourth was hidden behind the bathroom mirror. Leonard noticed the pattern. There were no cameras in two places, Emily and Ryan's bedroom and the workshop on the second floor. When he asked about the workshop, Ryan shook his head. There are too many chemicals up there, Leonard. Solvent fumes would eat through the electronics in a couple of days. Trust me, I know about this stuff. Leonard, who had worked with those materials for 42 years, knew that the ventilation he and Nora had installed worked beautifully. He also knew cameras were made for far harsher conditions. But the fog in his head turned every thought into an effort he didn't want to make. Ryan took control of the finances, the bank cards, the accounts, the mail. When Leonard reached for the phone to call an old friend, a fellow craftsman he had known since the 80s, Ryan appeared at once. Let me dial for you. It's not good for you to squint at the screen. Rest. And one evening, when Ethan's name lit up on the phone, Ryan snatched the device before Leonard could reach it. Ethan's buried at work, Leonard. Let's not get in the man's way. When he's free, he'll call back. Then he declined the call. Leonard wanted to shout that he had the right to speak to his own son, but the shout got stuck somewhere between his chest and his throat. The workshop on the second floor, with its ventilation, its 17 frozen mechanisms, and its workbench that remembered the touch of thousands of tiny parts, remained the only place where no one watched him. Leonard didn't yet understand why he needed that refuge, and in Washington, Ethan had been calling his father's number after work for 3 weeks. Every time, the ringing cut off halfway through, the way calls do not cut themselves off. Clarity returned one drop at a time, like light entering a room as someone slowly raises the shade. By the third morning, without swallowing the pills, Leonard had learned to hide them under his tongue, spit them into his palm, then nod and thank his daughter with an acting skill he had never expected from himself. He woke up with a feeling he hadn't had in months. His head worked, not perfectly, not as it had before, but the gears turned, and thought ran forward instead of getting stuck halfway. Emily and Ryan went out somewhere that morning. Leonard came downstairs to the kitchen, reached to the top shelf for instant coffee, and knocked a stack of papers off the counter with his elbow. The pages scattered across the floor. He bent down to gather them and froze. A completed petition form for court. His information: Leonard Miller, 67 years old. Driver's license. Address. Under it lay a draft psychiatric evaluation with boxes checked beside phrases like delusional ideas, visual hallucinations, paranoia, loss of ability to care for oneself. Beside that was a glossy brochure from a private memory care residence with photographs of peaceful patios. Ryan's hand had underlined the prices. Leonard sat down and stared at the papers for a long time. Not a declaration that he was insane. A court petition to have him declared incapacitated. If the petition went through, a guardianship would be established. Emily would become his guardian. The house, the accounts, the collection, everything would stop belonging to him. And he would end up in a facility he couldn't leave without his guardian's signature. He carefully put the pages back into the same stack, in the same order, and went upstairs to the workshop. That evening, Emily brought the pill. Leonard placed it on his tongue, raised the glass to his lips, swallowed, and nodded with exaggerated satisfaction. His daughter stood there for a moment, smiled, and left. He spit the pill into his palm and whispered after her, "For 42 years, I've assembled mechanisms with gears thinner than a human hair, and you seriously decided I couldn't hide a pill from my own daughter. Emily, I taught you how to play hide and seek. Did you really think I forgot all the rules? Then he dissolved it in a mug of water. A cloudy gray sediment clung to the sides. For comparison, he dropped a multivitamin from a bottle he and Nora had once bought together into another mug and got a clean orange solution. On an old laptop, connected through the mobile hotspot of a backup phone, he found articles about sedative, benzodiazepines, and hallucinogenic side effects. Nora's appearance in the bedroom had not been madness. It was the pills. His mind wasn't leaving him, it was being taken. That same night, in the workshop, a small flip phone vibrated. It was the same phone Ethan had quietly pressed into his father's hand in the kitchen 6 months earlier, when Emily moved in. Hide it somewhere far away, in a box with the smallest parts, and keep the battery charged. Let it sit there just in case, Ethan had said. Ethan, for heaven's sake, you're exaggerating. We're not in a spy movie. Dad, I'm an investigator. Occupational damage. I'm not exaggerating. I'm building a margin of safety. Those are different things. Better that you never need it than that it isn't there when you do. The phone had been lying in a box of clock parts for half a year, and until that night, it had never rung. Dad, don't interrupt me. Just listen and remember everything I say. We don't have much time. Ethan's voice was hard, stripped of its usual softness as a son. Your Ryan Whitaker is a fake, a character. His real name is Owen Chandler. He has 3 convictions in different states under different last names. He's a master of reinvention. The pattern is always the same. He gains trust, marries in, isolates an older relative, then systematically takes the property. I've been digging into him for 3 months, but I can't officially run the case because you're my father and the victim. That's a direct conflict of interest. They'll pull me off immediately. Ethan, Dad, I asked you not to interrupt. My colleague Dana Collins is officially preparing the materials for a criminal case. We need at least 2 weeks to build an ironclad evidence file no attorney can tear apart. You need to stay in the workshop. Act normal. Watch, document everything you see and hear. Most important, under no circumstances let them take you to that facility. If you get in there once and sign papers, getting you out legally will be almost impossible. I understand. I'll manage. Leonard was quiet for a moment. Ethan, tell me honestly, did you suspect something from the start? I had thoughts. But when you stopped answering calls and they kept cutting me off, I started digging seriously. Good job. A real professional. His voice gave out. Your mother would have been very proud of you. Mom would have boxed my ears first for not driving down and taking you out the first day. But if I show up now, I'll scare them off and they'll walk away clean. Hold on, Dad. We need 2 weeks. Leonard put the phone back in the parts box and sat at the workbench. His hands found what they knew, a screwdriver, tweezers. His fingers stopped shaking. The next day, the doorbell rang. Ruth Caldwell, a retired nurse and Nora's old friend, stood on the porch holding a pot. Leo, I made turkey stew with prunes. I followed our Nora's recipe exactly. Of course, hers still came out better. I'm not fooling myself there, but it smells decent enough. Emily appeared in the hallway instantly, like a security camera detecting motion. Ruth, thank you so much for caring, but Dad is resting right now. The doctor was very strict. No extra stress and no visits. Oh, honey, please. In the history of medicine, nobody has ever been excited to death by a serving of turkey stew. Ruth wasn't looking at Emily. She was looking at Leonard, sharp-eyed, the way she must once have looked at patients in cardiology. Leo, look me in the eye. How are you really? Do you have enough strength? I'm all right, Ruth. Truly. Thank you for stopping by. Emily closed the door, gently but firmly. Before it shut, Ruth managed to whisper, I'm close by, Leo. Always close. 2 days later, when Emily and Ryan went out again, Ruth came through the backyard. In the workshop, among the silent mechanisms, she told Leonard something that left him quiet for a long time. 10 years ago, my younger sister Lucy landed in exactly that kind of paradise facility. My sister-in-law pulled it off through a psychiatrist she knew. And Lucy's mind was clear as day, Leo. She did crosswords until the very end, like she was cracking walnuts. 4 months later, she was gone, and I just stood on the side. I was afraid to stick my nose into family business, afraid of a family scandal. I thought maybe I was missing something. Maybe it really was dementia. Doctors know better, right? They have diplomas. She pressed her lips together. I won't let myself make that mistake twice. A conscience only stretches so far. Ruth, I'm grateful, but I don't want to drag you into all this. It could be dangerous. Too late, Leo. I'm in up to my ears. A week ago, I found Ethan's number through an old contact at the department and called him. I told him everything straight out. How they filter your mail. How they don't let guests pass the door. How you've turned into a shadow of yourself over these months. Ethan said he needs me as an independent witness, someone who sees the situation from outside. She placed a key to her house and a notebook on the workbench. The notebook was filled with dates, times, and descriptions of everything she had observed. Leonard took the key and closed his fist around it. 2 days later, while moving a mantel clock near the wall of the workshop, he noticed a crack in the floor, a gap about a 1/4 inch wide where the wood had dried out over decades. He bent down and saw the living room below. The couch, the table, the front door. Ryan was downstairs talking on the phone and counting money, but Leonard couldn't hear a word. He needed sound. Through Ruth, who brought a package through the backyard, he received a microcamera. Motion activated, battery powered for 10 days, with its own Wi-Fi invisible to the home router. He decided to hide it inside the grandfather clock he had built for Nora on their 20th anniversary. He had found the mahogany case years ago at a flea market in Pennsylvania and restored the mechanism from a 19th century German floor clock. It stood in the living room and nobody had paid attention to it in years. Emily, I need to take the grandfather clock upstairs, he told his daughter at dinner. The beat is off. The pendulum is acting up. I need to regulate it properly and oil it. Dad, why do you need to do that now? Isn't it too heavy for you to haul around? Sweetheart, I carried that clock in my arms when you were still walking under tables and thought oatmeal was punishment for sin. My spine will manage. Don't worry. Work is better for me right now than any medicine. In the workshop, he took the case apart, removed the dial, and built the camera behind the Roman numeral 12. The lens looked out through a hole indistinguishable from a factory mark. He connected it to a tablet through an independent network. His own workshop appeared on the screen from the angle of the clock face. He smiled and stroked the case with his palm. Well, Nora, now you don't just show time. You record it for history. He carried the clock back down to the living room. Emily glanced at it briefly. Already fixed it? That was quick. Your mother loved this clock. Let it stand where it belongs. The first recording arrived that same evening. At 9:47, Emily and Ryan settled on the couch. Harper confirmed he's ready to issue the right evaluation on Thursday. Ryan said, relaxed, one ankle resting on the opposite knee. So all the court papers will be in our hands by Friday. What if he backs out at the last second and refuses? Listen, for $30,000 in cash, Harper will swear under oath that you grew wings behind your back and the old man started talking to Napoleon's ghost. Emily leaned back against the couch, exhausted. I'm so worn out, Ryan. I have no strength left to keep smiling at him, to act like a caring daughter all the time. All this oatmeal and concern, I just want it over. Patience, baby. We're in the home stretch. Look, the house will bring about $1.8 million. The clock collection through Keller should bring $500,000 to $650,000. He confirmed interest, plus his savings, another $300,000 or so. Net, we're looking at around $2.7 million. A very respectable fee for 6 months of playing the model daughter. Leonard sat in the dark workshop with headphones on. Tears ran down his face, but he didn't wipe them away. He simply listened. 2 days later, the camera captured something else. During the day, while Ryan was out, a tall man walked into the living room. Emily crossed the room and kissed him long enough to leave. No doubt, it was not Ryan. Harper will sign the papers. Everything is handled, the man said confidently, not letting Emily out of his arms. On Saturday, the old man gets packed up and hauled away. Within 48 hours, all the money will pass through the accounts and land offshore. By the time Ryan suspects anything or tries to check the balances, you and I will be warming ourselves in the sun in the Turks and Caicos. And if he's smarter than we think, what if he figures it out sooner? Come on, all the documents are in his name. He isn't our partner, Em. He's just disposable material. The scapegoat who stays here and deals with the fallout. Leonard photographed the man's face from the screen and sent it to Ethan. The reply came an hour later. Stanley Whitlow, 39. Ties to financial scams. 2 previous relationships with wealthy women. Both lost their assets. One case ended with a death in a care facility. Using the old laptop and the hotspot from the backup phone, Leonard started looking up the facility. Behind the glossy facade, he found 3 lawsuits in 5 years, all settled privately. The director was listed as Gregory Upshaw, a former paramedic, whose medical license had been revoked in 2018 and who had almost immediately opened a wellness residence under a new name. Through an article in a local paper, Leonard found Peter Sutton. "My mother, Nadine Sutton," Peter said in a hollow voice, pausing for long, heavy breaths. She was 68, completely clear in the head. She was still doing bookkeeping part-time. My sister pulled the whole thing off through that same Dr. Harper. In barely 2 months, $420,000 vanished from Mom's accounts. When we finally got her out of there, she lived 3 weeks. She just faded. The second victim, Annette Porter, 71, had spent 4 months in the facility under such heavy doses of sedatives that she stopped recognizing her own name. They had forced her to sign papers, transferring property worth $320,000. Both agreed to testify. Leonard closed the laptop and looked at the 17 clocks standing silent around him in the dark workshop. His story was not his alone. Harper, the facility, the money transfers. The whole scheme came together like an assembly line that had been running for years. And Peter, who had lost his mother, and Annette, who had lost 4 months of her life and everything she had earned, were waiting for someone to finally assemble the mechanism of justice from scattered parts. A clockmaker knew how to do that better than most. 48 hours. That was all Leonard had left. The camera recorded another conversation that same evening. Emily had learned from one of the neighbors that Ruth had called Washington, and she demanded they speed up the plan. Not Thursday, Saturday. Ryan argued that it was risky, but she cut him off mid-sentence. Here's what's going to happen. Saturday morning, private medical transport needs to be here by 7 at the latest, while he's still sleepy and hasn't gone up to his workshop. We'll stage a typical aggressive episode. I'll put a couple bruises on my forearm, leave a scratch on my neck, say he attacked us. We'll arrange emergency admission, and that same hour we'll file the petition with the court. By the time Ethan catches on and starts knocking on doors, Dad will already be safely placed in the facility under supervision. Leonard copied all the recordings onto 3 flash drives. He hid one in the workshop, placed the second in his inner pocket, and at 2 in the morning carried the third to Ruth through the backyard. On Friday morning, Dr. Harper appeared at the door. Leonard came downstairs, carefully shuffling his feet and mixing up his words. "Leonard, my friend, let's have a little chat, purely as a formality, so I can make sure everything is all right with you. Remind me, what year is it?" 2026, unless I missed something while I was asleep. "Wonderful. And what day of the week is it?" "Friday, I think. Although in this house, the days are now different, only because of how loudly Emily slams the door." "I understand. It happens. Now, let's check your attention. Count backward from 100 by 7s. Shall we try? Easy. 100, 93, 86, 79, 72. Should I continue into negative numbers, or is that enough for your evaluation?" Harper frowned and threw a quick look toward Emily, who was standing in the doorway. Leonard thought, "He's looking at me the way a customer looks at a clockmaker who fixed the clock on the first try. Clearly not according to plan. Do you feel safe at home, Leonard? What do you think? Surrounded by such care and attention, I'm obligated to feel as if I'm in a fortress or a cell. Depends how you look at it." Leonard allowed himself the smallest smile. Harper coughed and went into the kitchen with Emily and Ryan. The clock camera recorded everything: pronounced cognitive impairment, delusional states, danger to himself. The evaluation for court was ready. Ryan handed over an envelope. Emily added, "The transport comes tomorrow at 7 in the morning. Leonard sent Ethan one message: transport tomorrow at 7. The answer arrived a minute later. "I'll be there at 6. They came at 5:30. Leonard wasn't sleeping. He sat in the workshop by the window. 2 vehicles with their headlights off rolled up to the house, a white van and a dark sedan. Ryan opened the front door and let in 2 men in medical uniforms. One carried a folding stretcher. The other held a folder and a syringe. "Move as quickly as possible before he wakes up and starts asking unnecessary questions," Ryan ordered. "He's upstairs in the bedroom, sleeping hard," Emily said, "so we have plenty of time." Footsteps moved toward the stairs. Ethan wasn't there yet. Half an hour until 6. Half an hour until rescue. And Leonard had to live through those 30 minutes by himself. He stood, took the tablet, and stepped out onto the landing. The 4 people below froze. Emily stood on the 3rd stair. Ryan stood behind her. Both medical attendants stared upward. "Good morning, gentlemen," Leonard said. "You're awfully early. Too early for a normal doctor's visit, but somehow too official looking for a burglary. Dad, please come downstairs without tricks. You're sick. You need professional help. We discussed this 100 times yesterday." "We did. You know, I've been thinking. Somehow, we didn't hear each other very well. Let's refresh our memory and discuss it all over again." He tapped the screen. Emily's voice poured from the tablet speakers through the whole house. "I'm so worn out pretending to be a caring daughter." Then Ryan's voice. "For $30,000, Harper will write anything." Emily again. $2.7 million. Not bad for 6 months. Ryan rushed up the stairs. "Stay where you are." Leonard raised one hand. "I have 3 copies. One is with Ruth. The second is already in cloud storage, and the third is with Ethan. So there's no point breaking the tablet. You'll only ruin a decent piece of equipment." Emily's mask slipped instantly. She screamed that he had set everything up, that he had been spying, that he had no right. Ryan turned on her, accusing her, demanding to know what Ethan knew and what she had done. Both attendants backed toward the door, muttering that they had only been hired. The front door slammed open downstairs. "State Police, everyone stay where you are and keep calm. Hands where I can see them." Ethan came in first. Behind him were Investigator Dana Collins and 4 uniformed officers. Emily, Ryan, and both attendants were forced to the floor. Ryan made one final attempt. "Listen, this is some kind of mistake. We have an official evaluation from Dr. Harper. Everything is completely legal. Your Dr. Harper was arrested an hour ago while accepting another little token of gratitude," Ethan replied. "So, his paperwork is now useful only for kindling." Leonard came downstairs holding the tablet and looked at his daughter lying face down on the living room floor, 3 steps from Nora's grandfather clock. "There's one more person involved," he told his son. "Stanley Whitlow. He's the real brain behind this entire operation." Ryan lifted his head from the floor. "What is he talking about? What Whitlow?" "The same Stan your wife was so tenderly kissing on this very couch while you were away at your endless business meetings," Leonard said. "The 2 of them plan to cash out, send the money offshore, and start a new life. And you, Ryan, were going to be tossed aside like dead weight. Don't believe me? Listen for yourself." He played the recording. Whitlow's voice sounded from the tablet. "If Ryan tries to interfere, we'll remove him. Accidents happen." Ryan jerked toward Emily. Ethan intercepted him. "I suggest we act out the finale," Leonard said. "Send Whitlow a message from her phone. Keep it short. Everything is ready. Dad is in the facility. Come quick. We need to celebrate our victory." 28 minutes later, Whitlow pulled up with a bottle of expensive cognac. He walked in with the smile of a winner and saw the handcuffs. Dana Collins put him face down on the floor. The bottle flew from his hand and shattered, spilling across the entryway. Leonard looked at the broken glass and thought, judging by the label, the cognac was decent. Probably the most honest thing that man ever brought into my house. 3 days later, a convoy of state and federal investigators arrived at the facility. Ethan called that evening. "Dad, it's a nightmare in there. 32 residents in such a condition, it's hard to look at them. 28 had severe sedative overdoses. They were injecting people for no medical reason at all, just to keep them quiet. Preliminary numbers show they drained about $9 million from people over 5 years, and that's just the surface. At least 50 victims. Several people didn't survive that kind of treatment." Leonard was quiet for a long time. "Do everything you can so they never walk free again, Ethan. Just shut them down. We're already on it. They won't buy their way out." The trial took place in the fall. The courtroom was full. Annette Porter came forward with a walker and spoke about 4 months of which she remembered almost nothing except strangers' hands turning the pages of documents she was made to sign. Peter Sutton spoke about his mother in 3 sentences because on the 4th he fell silent and sat down. Ruth spoke about her sister. Leonard was last. "I am 67 years old. I am not insane. I have not lost my mind, and I understand perfectly well what I'm saying. I have been a master clockmaker for 42 years. I work with the most delicate mechanisms, and I'm used to precision. I was systematically drugged with pills, locked inside my own home, and prepared to be written off like scrap. All of it for money, a house, and a collection I gathered piece by piece over my whole life. But today I'm not here for myself. There are 50 families here whose lives were broken. 50. And this whole system that allowed it to happen got used to looking at older people as walking wallets that could be emptied without punishment. Well, we are not easy prey. We are much stronger and tougher than these gentlemen, in expensive suits ever bothered to imagine. The sentences came down. Harper received 14 years and a lifetime ban from practicing medicine. Upshaw received 9. Keller received 7. Ryan received 11. Whitlow received 16, with related cases in other states taken into account. Emily received 18 years in prison as one of the organizers. When the deputies lifted her from the bench, she turned around. "Dad, forgive me. Please, Dad." Leonard looked at the wall in front of him. Then he turned. "You know, Emily, I have absolutely nothing left to say to you." The words ran out that Saturday. The deputies led her away. Ethan put a hand on his father's shoulder. They left the courtroom in silence. Leonard sold the old house to a young family. The wife walked through the rooms, touched the hand-painted fireplaces, and kept saying, "Oh my God, it's beautiful. Just look how much soul is here. This house has as such character. Every detail feels like it's breathing history." "This house was my late wife's greatest dream," Leonard said. "Please take care of it." "We will," she said. "It deserves that." Before leaving, he removed the micro camera from behind the Roman numeral 12. The camera was no longer needed, but he took the clock with him. Ethan helped him move into a 2-bedroom apartment near his family. One room became a workshop, brighter than the old one, with good natural light. Nora's grandfather clock stood in the living room and ticked as if nothing had happened. A year later, a letter arrived from prison. A government envelope, crooked handwriting. "Dad, I know you probably won't read this, but I have to write. I'm sorry, I was greedy. I was cruel. Prison gives a person time to think. There's plenty of it here. I'm not asking forgiveness, but I remember what you said about broken things that can be repaired. I'm trying. Maybe I'll need all 18 years. I always loved you. I just forgot how to prove it." Leonard read it 3 times. He didn't answer, but he put the letter in the drawer where he kept Emily's childhood photographs. There she was, a little girl on a tall stool with the serious face of a surgeon's assistant, holding out a screwdriver to her father. On Sunday, Ethan brought Ava over. His granddaughter climbed onto the stool beside the workbench, propped her chin on her fists, and watched as her grandfather took apart a damaged mantel clock. She stayed quiet for a long time, then asked, "Grandpa, why do you even bother with these old clocks? They're completely broken." Leonard set the tool down. "You see, Ava, even things that seem hopelessly broken can become beautiful again. You only need patience and careful hands, and you have to truly care what happens to them." Ava nodded seriously, the way children nod when they have made an important decision. "Like people, right?" "Exactly, sweetheart. Just like people." Ethan took the children home by evening. Leonard stayed in the workshop. The sunset lay across the workbench, across the tools, across the case of a clock he was repairing for an elderly woman from West Virginia, free of charge, the 23rd one that year. From the living room came the steady ticking of Nora's grandfather clock. He looked at his wrist, at the watch his wife had fastened there in hospice with a weightless but firm hand, and whispered, "We made it, Nora. We're finally home." He was 68. Time was moving. So was he. And if this story made you think about family, trust, justice, or the second chances we give to broken things, and sometimes to broken people, tell me in the comments what you would have done in Leonard's place. If you've ever seen someone you love betrayed or protected them when they couldn't protect themselves, share that too. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you don't miss the next story.